So despite all the online controversy surrounding Snow White, early reactions from the film's Los Angeles premiere are actually pretty positive. People are praising Rachel Zegler's performance, with one critic even calling her stunning. And some, and some are saying the film is mostly successful. Of course, these first impressions are coming from influencers and fan bloggers who tend to be more enthusiastic than traditional critics. And interestingly, there haven't been many formal reviews yet, which raises some eyebrows. But for now, it looks like Disney's Snow White might not be the disaster some people were expecting. We've got a bunch of quotes from people that have seen it. One says, despite becoming an internet punching bag, Disney's remake of Snow White is actually mostly successful, wrote Matt DeGroot of Crooked Media. Rachel Zegler is an absolute star. Most of the new songs are catchy and beautifully performed, and the visual palette is sumptuous and vibrant. Gal Gadot has beautiful gowns. It's a solid 3.5 out of 5. Do you want me to read all of these or just one or two more?
Just the quotes from people, just the review.
Okay. Paul Klein of Filmhound Magazine wrote a similar take. I may regret saying this, but Snow White is solid. I really enjoyed the musical numbers, particularly the opening one and the Queen's Evil Bop. Zegler was great in the lead role and Gadot was fun. It's really the CGI dwarves that let the film down. The choice is baffling. Screen Rant said, despite the Bob being all over the place, hashtag Snow White is quite charming. The message lands well, the critters are adorable, and Rachel Zegler and her enchanting voice are stunning. It's almost got a full tear out of me, and I've never cried in my entire life. We Love Physical Media wrote, not a fan of Zegler or Gadot, but man, this ended up being so good. The news outlet wrote, I think this one is going to surprise a lot of people and do numbers. It's in my top 5 of Disney live action remakes. Go see it. And then lastly here from the Diz Insider. Listen, I was worried, but let me tell you, Snow White is pure Disney magic. This will end up being a lot of people's favorite live action remake. If you enjoyed Aladdin or Cinderella, you'll be happy.
Shills, all of them shills.
Well,
all
look,
shill accounts, yes.
I'm not surprised to hear this. In fact, Alan, you and I both have a contact. Rob, I think it's the same person that whispers to us about theatrical. What have you heard?
That it's good. Not great, but good. And that again for theaters. If this movie makes 400 million, 500 million, it's great for theaters. It may not, the movie may lose money, but in the end, if it helps the theaters, it's worth putting out there.
I also think something that is forgotten, I was saying this earlier today, is that this is a film that is going to bring in the female audience. Mm-hmm. You're going to get mothers and daughters. It's the same audience that put Captain Marvel over $1 billion. Yeah.
And it's a straight up princess film.
Yeah, it's always discounted. I mean, that's exactly what it's the American Girl audience, the Disney princess audience. And that's really kind of who it's for. I mean, this movie is clearly not for me. The hardest course I ever took in college, believe it or not, was a Disney history course. The guy, there was so much reading. I felt like I was in medical school. It was really an intense, deep dive into Disney, which served me well when I was making special features for Disney movies in the early 2000s, like Fantasia. But Snow White is a very significant IP. It's the first Disney feature film. It's one of the first animated feature films. There's an incredible legacy for this movie as far as Disney is concerned. So it doesn't surprise me that this movie turned out to be good because they've reshot things. If this movie was a bad film, it would reflect really badly on the studio. But I think that this film is going to draw in the female audience. I think mothers and daughters are going to go. I think people are going to go multiple times. And I think this movie's probably going to do okay. It's not for me.
Yeah.
I think for me,
by the way, I'm showing some of the.
By the way, Cinderella, though, with Lily James, that was for me.
I'm showing some of the exclusive merch you can get. This is from the Alamo Draft House. Is doing a lunch bucket and
Regal has the heart box.
There's a cape blanket. I'll show some of it while you're talking amongst yourselves.
To me, this movie, if the music is exceptional in this film, it's going to get a good review from me. I'll tell you.
I've listened to the soundtrack because the soundtrack is already out there. I listened to the whole soundtrack to get a gauge on the movie. And make no mistake, the songs that were written by Pasek and Paul are really good. They're what did they call them? Like total bops. They can definitely, I can see them becoming earworms. Like they have great melodies. They worked on La La Land and The Greatest Showman. Those are two of probably my favorite musicals.
I think they did Dear Evan
because of the songs. So they know how to create beautiful songs. So some of the songs that I listened to, I don't know, they were fine, but they weren't memorable. I always thought that there was something, I couldn't put my finger on it, but when Rachel Zegler was, singing Waiting on a Wish for Snow White and promoting Snow White singing Waiting on a Wish, I was like, it's not resonating with me. And I couldn't figure out why. When Halle Bailey went out and performed Part of Your World, like I loved it. There were a bunch of music influencers that were, trying to do it on TikTok and on Instagram. I'm not really seeing a lot of people singing Waiting on a Wish. So that's sort of like a gauge as to how excited people are for this new music as well. And the reason it wasn't resonating with me is because it's a brand new song. It's new to Snow White. I'm not familiar with this song with Snow White. If she was singing I'm Wishing or Someday My Prince Will Come, those two songs, that would resonate with people. That would get some nostalgia going with people because that song is so recognizable with Snow White, the princess.
Yeah, well, I think that's
the princesses in general, they do resonate with girls. Yes, absolutely. I love Disney princesses. I grew up with Disney princesses, but slowly with each live action remake, they've completely changed the Disney princesses to where they're not really the ones that we grew up with. They don't lean into that femininity. They don't lean into those love stories. In fact, they've been kind of moving away from love stories. If this has a love story in it, which I think judging on the song choices, the soundtrack, it probably will, but I don't think it will have a love story the way people might think. They've been sort of leaning away from love stories. And so since they've been changing these live action Disney princesses, it's not really resonating with girls the way it should be because they're changing them so much. Cinderella was probably the best live action Disney princess that we've gotten. Jasmine, kind of. Aladdin, I think they mentioned those two because those two are probably the Disney princesses that people actually liked when I went and saw them, despite Jasmine's solo song and she becomes the Sultan at the end. That was kind of weird, but those two were good movies. If we're comparing Disney live action remakes with princesses.
We're just saying if this is good, it's going to make money. If the songs are decent, it's going to make money. I know we say we're the media, but that's only people that turn on YouTube in this corner. Most people just hear, Disney movie. And if the song sounds in any way good, they'll take their kids to it.
Well, that's the thing is the movie will succeed because it's good, but it should be great. And that's my issue is this is Disney. It should be great. And Steph, you bring up the main point. It's the motivation of both Snow Whites. In the original, Someday My Prince Will Come. In this one, she is kind of wanting to take the leadership that her father, passed down to her. That's, as good as feminism is, it's not exactly the touchy-feely feelings you want to get from a Disney film. You want to feel some romance. You want to feel love. You want to feel, aspire to something. But this is about leadership. And I don't know how much that resonates with children. And I don't think that will make a great story in the end.
Yep. I agree. I think the backlash on this film is apoplectic. I've never seen anything like it. You had two trailers back to back hit 1.5 million dislikes. That's big. That's not something to just wave away. You had chat music come out and do not one, not two, but 3 videos that blew this entire movie out of the water.
Yeah.
I'm going to be shocked if this thing does well in the box office.
Robert, what does apoplectic mean? Tell me real quick.
I'm sorry.
By the way, someone in the chat says the stop hiding behind it's not for men. I mean, clearly, obviously you want certain movies are definitely crossover films for everybody. But you can't tell me that this is supposed to appeal to men and women equally.
Or men and boys.
I mean, it really it's not that way. And there's nothing wrong with saying that it's not for men. The primary target audience for this movie, that's why there are that's why Disney princesses exist.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, look, there's a lot of Disney movies that I enjoy. I grew up watching Disney live action films, and they re-released all the animated classics that's how Disney made their money. Pre The Little Mermaid getting released in the late 80s, Disney made their movies re-releasing their animated classics year after year after year to the generations that hadn't seen them yet. And I think that a movie like this, I think this movie is going to do very, very well, because all the things that we've been talking about in Rachel Ziegler, most people that are outside of the movie influence sphere in whatever way, they don't know.
I think it's just escaped this fear. I think Rachel Zegler escaped out, and if people talk about this, I know people in my personal life that really ain't all about this. I said, what's up with Rachel Zegler? I just keep hearing about Rachel Zegler. It's like, again, all of the dislikes on the trailers, again, that's not just the YouTube sphere. That's anybody that wanted to go and look at that trailer, and they saw the doors and they saw all the ridicule and the mockery going on. It's just gotten to the point where Disney themselves says, we just want to get this over with. All right. Disney, the company, they're waiting until, like, if this movie was anything decent, they probably should have already had reviews out by now. They're waiting until Wednesday before the day that the film drops to allow reviews to be given. That's generally a sign that the movie is not as good as they wanted it to be. And so they're going to hold off on all reviews. The review embargo doesn't open up until what time you say, Chris? It was Wednesday at
noon Pacific.
Okay, so you're talking about the 24 hours ahead of the film being available.
Let's be upfront about it. Disney has been doing this embargo for the last, I would say, 9 to 10 films. This is nothing new.
Okay.
It's not new.
But let's also say that all the films have been pretty bad too.
Yeah, they have. I agree with Rob. This could do Mufasa numbers. Where Alan and I both saw Mufasa. It was terrible. We gave it a bad review.
Yeah.
And it went on to do well from the director of Moonlight, right? It did well.
Yeah. Chris, sing your favorite song from Mufasa.
I don't remember any of them. And also, by the way, I would push back on having raised both a boy and a girl. Both of them liked Disney movies, whether it was a princess movie or not. My son would see The Sense of Adventure or The Prince. They like Aladdin.
I absolutely. Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, I like all the Disney, but the thing is, also our culture has shifted. When I saw Snow White when I was a kid, the whole thing enchanted me. But our culture is way different than it was. Things change, and there was not a Disney movie that I didn't like because there was always an evil person in it, which there was an evil queen, where I could identify with fighting against that kind of evil. But I think that our world has definitely, the kids' childhood is very different today than it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Exactly.
And it used to be like, fairy tales. I didn't care when I was a kid if I was listening to or reading or watching a fairy tale about a female protagonist or a male protagonist. I didn't care. It was a fairy tale, so it was cool. But I think that our world has changed.
Yeah, and we have to talk about the fact that Disney has lost so much trust, and I mean, this brand has been around for what, 70 years almost. I mean, and they've had such a, for good. I mean, you say what you want to about them. They've had a good reputation up until now. And parents, and you're right, Rob, things are different because now parents are realizing that studios, and not just Disney, but studios are trying to sneak in these messages, right, to these kids, man. And parents now are aware of it. They're aware of the sneaky little messages that, hey, it's okay for a girl to be a boy and a boy to be a girl, and all this other little bullshit they try to pull in there, to the point where even if this movie doesn't have that, there's been so much distrust built that people are a little bit more like, it says it's for kids, but I got to be a little bit more cautious, right? Now, take that out of it completely. We're talking about a $300 million Snow White movie. That should never have happened. that should never have happened, dude. I mean, they're never going to see a return on this movie.
Also, by the way, Disney may own Disney's Snow White, but the fairy tale is up for grabs.
Yeah,
there could be a horror version of it before the end of the year. But there, whatever happened, because I don't know, I'm asking this question: what happened to the Daily Wire Snow White with Brett Cooper? Is that on ice?
Cooper.
I think it was a troll.
I think it was a troll. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you think that trailer was just a troll? They never.
Oh yeah,
made
yeah,
the movie.
absolutely.
All right.
Oh no, I think they were absolutely going to do it, and then behind the scenes controversy with Brett Cooper happened, and she left her very successful show to start all over on her own. But everything's completely fine over there. But yeah, that movie's not coming out. But I don't think it was a troll.
All right, no, I got my answer. Thanks.
It's funny though, but when we talk about romance and the lack of it, Disney has only had 2 romances in the last 10 years in their anime features, and that was Frozen and Strange World. And the funny thing about Strange World is, there have been 2 movies that nobody showed up to, and that was Strange World, and that was Lightyear, which was Pixar. And I just find it interesting that as Dante was saying, parents know when you're trying to smuggle a message in, and they don't take their kids to those movies. And that's why I think Snow White will do well, because I think the word is that anything Rachel Zegler had said, any of her weird comments are gone. And I think parents feel safe to take their kids to this movie.
Well, Alan, it's really interesting what you just pointed out too, the fact that there's no romance. Romance is no longer in favor in our culture.
Yes.
And it's certainly not the way that people, it's part of how the foundational principles of Western civilization have been slowly chipped away at. I mean, these fairy tales, especially, remember, like you said, these original fairy tales are Disney's interpretation. A lot of these fairy tales are much darker in their original incarnations than they are in these films.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's been the whole idea of someday my prince will come.
Mm-hmm.
That's frowned upon by much of our culture now. And why does she need a man? And that's a huge paradigm shift from where we were when this film was originally made, coming up on 100 years ago.
Right. Even real quick comment. Even the brand of Barbie was in real trouble with millennial moms, young moms, before the Barbie movie came out. Once the Barbie movie literally saved that toy line. So sorry, Dante.
No, I was going to say, I'm actually surprised that in the original draft of this Snow White movie that they didn't have Snow White banging all 7 dwarves just to take back her feminine power and be sexually empowered. I'm joking, but I'm kind of serious. They went out of their way to make this a non-romantic movie.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing:
where she falls in love traditionally with a man.
Here's the thing: it's not that kids aren't asking for romance in their movies. It is us as the adults in the room saying that we're not going to give it to them. Yes. Because I have to believe that if you have romance, kids will resonate with it, and kids still resonate with falling in love and seeing. It's like, how did kids get to be there in the first place? Well, 2 people had to be in love.
Right, but going back to Western culture, there's no romance in almost any movie now, not just Disney movies.
100%.
And it's because, women are being told that you don't need a man, or you are as strong and as capable as a man, which is why a lot of the heroines or women in movies nowadays take on manly traits. And that Disney has been pulling away from romantic love in their movies. Even Frozen. I haven't seen Strange World, but even Frozen, Anna, the sister who falls in love with the wrong man. She's depicted as dumb, right? She can't see through this person. She's easily manipulated and easily used. So that's the type of woman who would want romance in her life, right? So even she is depicted not as strong as Elsa. Elsa's independent. She's of her own. She can do it herself, right? So even she is depicted kind of as lower. And the only time that, Anna really has love in her heart is for her sister. And it's not, she chooses her sister over that man. So it's, when it's depicted in Disney, it's still different. I haven't seen Strange World, so I can't speak on that. But, going back to Western culture, right now, feminism is teaching you that you can do it all on your own. You don't need a man. You can do it by yourself. But at the same time, it's causing women to become more and more depressed and narcissistic as well.
You're 100% right. I mean, you read those surveys like the of college kids that they don't want to see relationships between men and women in their entertainment. I mean, these are, you can read these studies, and it's really odd. And I mean, nowadays, I'm surprised that Snow White didn't have her own OnlyFans and make these dwarves subscribe to her, even though she's living with them. You know, we live in a very strange time where, I mean, I even hate the word heteronormative, which is stupid. You mean biological imperatives? I mean, I don't know, but this is part of what's happening in our culture on a number of different levels. And like you said, it's leading people down a different road. And one of the things about fairy tales for anybody is the very idea that it's a fairy tale. It gives you this idealized, this life that you can dream about. Fairy tales are waking dreams. And dreams are not really politically motivated. They deal with what is in our subconscious and what do we really want in our lives, which is ultimately connection with other human beings. In whatever way, shape, or form those may take. Romantic being one of the most powerful. But we're too cool for school now. Let's not have that.